this is a diminished individual. And so I hope that he'll be honest with the American people. I'm glad to hear that he's meeting with Bibi Netanyahu, because there have been a lot of rumors on the Hill saying that he would not. I think it's really very important to not only Jewish Americans, but our ally Israel, to know that the United States supports them in their endeavors to clean out jihad, to clean out Hamas, and end terrorism once and for all. We need to be as supportive as we can of Israel.
Can I ask you something? Because if Biden were to resign the presidency, I mean, do you want Kamala Harris to become president at this point, 104 days before the election?
Well, we need to know who's running the country, who's making these decisions. Is it Kamala now? Is it close aides to Joe Biden? Because we know that it's not Joe Biden all the time, because he's not all there. I think these are fair questions. There is the 25th Amendment. She could invoke it with members of her cabinet. And, you know, really, the American people ought to know who's running the country. They voted for this guy. They voted him into office. But there are a lot of questions surrounding who's actually making these decisions. And when it comes to the election, I don't think it really matters who Democrats put on the top of the ticket, because Joe Biden, his family, the vice president, aided with their friends and the press, with pundits and everybody else, have covered up his decline over the last year or so. And so she's got a lot of questions, whether it's the border, whether it's the cover-up of Joe Biden's cognitive decline.
I guess what I wanted to ask you, Congresswoman, is that would you be more comfortable if you were assured that somebody was in charge of the country, and should that be the current vice president, who is now likely to be the nominee to be president for the Democratic side of the aisle going into 2024?
I filed a resolution yesterday encouraging the Vice President, Kamala Harris, to invoke the 25th Amendment with her cabinet.
Okay.
So I would support that endeavor. I filed a resolution expressing the sentiment of the House in that endeavor. We need to know who's in charge and who's making decisions for the country.
Okay, thank you. One correction here. Netanyahu's speech is tomorrow on Wednesday. It's not Thursday. The meeting comes on Thursday with Biden and Netanyahu. Nancy Mace, thank you so much. Appreciate you joining us.
Thank you.
Okay, so Speaker John, we were listening to him for a while. Then we went away from it for other news, and then he was asked about it. Check it out. Here he is on the Hill.
Can I get a reaction? Director Cheadle is stepping down.
She just resigned?
She just resigned. Can you say how this changes oversight of the assassination attempt now?
Well, she must have been watching our press conference. I'm glad she did the right thing. Look, our reaction, the immediate reaction to her resignation, is that it is overdue. She should have done this at least a week ago. I'm happy to see that. I'm happy to see that she has heeded the call of both Republicans and Democrats. Now we have to pick up the pieces.
So let's go back to that hearing from yesterday, because I think this is a rare moment in American government and politics. You know, maybe behind doors and maybe at dinners they get along and they agree on some things, but they never really show that on camera. It seems like every time they come on television, the Democrats are going to have a position, the Republicans are going to have a position. Yesterday it was different. After you got past a few speakers in the morning about gun control, this is what you heard repeatedly, Republicans and Democrats going at it. Watch.
I think that I am the best person to lead the Secret Service at this time.
Because Donald Trump is alive, and thank God he is, you look incompetent. If Donald Trump had been killed, you would have looked culpable.
I just don't think this is partisan. If you have an assassination attempt on a president, a former president, or a candidate, you need to resign.
You're full of today. You're just being completely dishonest.
I believe your horrifying ineptitude and your lack of skilled leadership is a disgrace. Your obfuscating today is shameful, and you should be fired immediately and go back to Garden Doritos.
That was the gentleman we just spoke to, Pat Fallon from Northeast Dallas, and you hear the emotion in his voice. How about the story he just relayed? He hasn't fired an AR in more than 10 years. He went out and took, what, 10 shots and was 10 for 10?
Right. So lots of questions as we have all this news happens in our hour, which we love.
You know what, Dana, one thing here is that thank God he survived.
Oh, yeah.
You know, Republican, Democrat, Independent, Martian, it doesn't matter. Thank God he survived.
And you look at that.
Because if that gunman was successful, we'd be over on Fifth Avenue outside Trump Tower covering a funeral right now.
Yeah.
And that funeral would go from New York down to Washington because he was president, and maybe down to Palm Beach in Florida. And, you know, that convention would have been canceled, I believe, and the nation would be on a downward spiral for several years. So thank God he missed.
I believe Annie Linsky from the Wall Street Journal is with us. Annie, thank you so much for being here. And you you cover the White House, you cover President Biden. Let me just maybe start with this Kimberly Cheadle resignation, because he has been recovering from COVID. He's making a big decision to withdraw from the race, but there never seems to be any sort of decisive action from the chief executive officer of the country when it comes to something like this, and it takes a hearing to get somebody under his direct report to resign.
Absolutely. I mean, it took, what, 9 days for this to happen? I mean, look, the president is still the president of the United States. When he's mulling his own political future, that's fine. That's going to take some time. But this was so surprising that it took this much time and that she had to resign. This president really, he does not like to fire people. He gets angry, he snaps at people, but he does not like to fire people. And I think in this instance, it certainly is surprising he just didn't.
So Barry Weiss in the Free Press writes this today, and I want to get you to react. And you really touched on it, too, 2 days ago in your piece. The era of the noble lie. Why do we have a crisis of trust, she writes, because the experts keep lying. Joe Biden is only the latest example. And your piece from 2 days ago, you say voters thought the faltering president was too old, but allies looked the other way. How do we square that now, Annie?
I mean, I've spent months thinking about this. You really, you want the people that you cover when you're having private conversations with them, you want to believe them, that those private conversations, there's some amount of candor to them, and getting at the truth is extraordinarily hard. And it's something that at the Journal we took months doing. We spent months and months talking to people about the president's acuity, and it was still incredibly hard, even though, as many of our readers and viewers point out, it was plainly evident in plain sight, his many slips. So, I mean, we're going to continue to take that kind of scrutiny that we did to the president, to the vice president, to the former president as the campaign goes forward.
Can I ask you about tomorrow? We hear that President Biden will return to, well, I guess he's coming to the White House today. He's going to address the nation tomorrow about his decision to withdraw. Any insight as to why we have not actually been able to even see him? Not a glimpse, not a still photograph, nothing since this momentous news that he broke on Sunday?
The lack of transparency here is jaw-dropping. I mean, you know this from your work at the White House. When I covered Barack Obama, when he was on vacation, in Martha's Vineyard, the press pool, which I was part of, would see him every day. Now, look, the president did not love that you had a bunch of reporters coming to the golf course to take a picture of him, but the point of that was that people across the country and throughout the world could see this is the president of the United States, and he's fine. And to have the president sort of in seclusion without being seen for this, not even a walk on the beach, is jaw-dropping, particularly because his doctor continues to send out letters saying he's getting better, he's getting better, he's getting better.
Annie, thanks for coming on.
Great to have you.
I just want to point out one thing in that piece I mentioned. October 2021 was the last time that Biden met with House Democrats on the Hill regarding legislation. That was October of 2021. And Dean Phillips is quoted by Annie Linsky in the piece. The first time I remember people pretty jarred by what they had seen. All right, that was 3 years ago. 3 years ago, and everybody kept quiet.
And just last week, you had all these Democrats coming on this show and saying that Biden was perfectly fine. And now all of a sudden he's not, and they're complaining that Trump's too old.
Yeah.
Give me a break.
The head of state police in PA is at that hearing right now, and Ted Williams is on scene there in Butler, PA. And Ted, what do you have for us? What are you finding out on the ground?
Well, I can tell you what I found out, Bill and Dana, that there was a colossal failure here that could have caused the death of the 45th president of the United States. When you look around and you look at this roof, you talk about Kimberly Cheatle. She lied to the American people. She told them that that roof that this killer was on was a slope roof and that nobody would get on it. But what happened is there were other roofs that were higher that you had counter snipers on. And that roof, I have seen that roof. That roof was not that difficult to get on. There was a colossal failure. Kim Cheatle should have left. She should have been gone a long time ago. The one thing we remember, Harry Truman saying, the buck stops here. It stopped with Kimberly Cheatle. And I got to tell you, she lied again yesterday. And was the sad part of her lies was she went before a committee and she couldn't even tell them what happened here in Butler. And I can tell you, I've talked to people here in Butler, and they've said, why hasn't the director of the Secret Service come here to Butler to see this site herself? So that's very troubling,
Okay.
Bill and Dana.
Yeah, thank you, Ted. Appreciate you being there. We'll check in with you again tomorrow. Thank you, Ted Williams. Donald Trump says the Biden-Harris administration did not properly protect me, and I was forced to take a bullet for democracy. It was my great honor to do so. Former President Trump.
It's kind of the most pointed he has been, right? He does an interview with Jesse in which he says that the U.S. Secret Service Director, Cheadle, who just resigned, did come to see him, and he said she was very nice, but did not give him any answers as to what happened. And I think we all need to make sure that we're focused on, okay, so if she's resigning, but what changes are being made to make sure this doesn't happen again?
Fair point. President Biden says, Jill and I are grateful to Director Cheadle for her decades of public service. Goes on to say she was selflessly dedicated and risked her life to protect our nation throughout her career in the United States Secret Service. We especially thank her for answering the call to lead the Secret Service during our administration. We're grateful for her service to our family. As a leader, it takes honor, courage, and incredible integrity to take full responsibility for organization tasked with one of the most difficult, challenging jobs in public service. I'm almost out of time. I'm going to stop there because what I want to tell you is that he did not fire her.
No.
She resigns.
Nope. And she got a nice statement from him on the way out. You're looking here at Kamala Harris. She just got off of, I don't know what you call it. If the president's not on, it's the vice president. I'm not sure what you call it. Marine 2, perhaps?
Yes.
She's heading to Milwaukee. She'll be doing a rally there. It's her first one. We'll see how many people show up. I mean, the line was not that impressive, and Alexis showed us a few minutes ago, but there she